The Gods Must Be Crazy, an epic comedy of absurd proportions.
Welcome to The Real Generation Gap. I'm Rudy Ruiz.
I'm Fred Zittilli.
And today we're going to be discussing the 1980 film, The Gods Must Be Crazy. When a Coke bottle gets thrown out of a plane and falls and causes controversy among the tribe, a lone bushman goes on a journey to throw the Coke bottle off the edge of the earth to return it to the gods. This leads to him landing in all sorts of situations with some, what do we got? We got some crazy mercenaries. We got a school teacher and a clumsy guy with his wacky Jeep and all kinds of shenanigans. I'm going to have to throw it to you from here. I will say right off the bat, this movie is very highly rated. Ebert and Siskel gave it a very good review. I've read Ebert's review from back in the day.
97 on Tomatoes.
Yeah. It had, oh man, I forgot. I wish I wrote this down, but it's maybe set a record for the longest running movie in some theater for that time period. So it was obviously a hit even at the time.
Yeah, which was 1980.
Yeah,
The movie
1980.
came out in 1980.
So starting with that, for me, this was the longest 1 hour and 46 minutes of my life. I felt like I was watching a 4-hour movie. I would have rather been watching Cannibal Holocaust for the 10th time.
For the 10th time?
Yeah, I did not feeling it.
That's a shame. Maybe it was where you were, your frame of mind, like maybe because that always is an element.
It is,
right? Like if you want to get out of here, you're like, let's the plot. Give me the.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, you threw it over me. I'll accept that, and I'll give a little bit different recap. And that is, it takes place in the Kalahari, and the Kalahari is a really isolated place in sub-Saharan Africa. And even though it's a desert, it's not the Sahara Desert. It's the Kalahari Desert. It's a different environment. And these people are perfectly adapted to living there. They know how to live there. Nobody else can.
Yeah.
You die in no time at all. As you said, a guy threw a Coke bottle out of an airplane. It landed on the ground, and it was something new in their environment. Mm-hmm. It was an inexplicable thing. It was some kind of really hard, because they had no rocks. This is a sand environment, sandy soil, this brush scrub.
The hardest things they knew were wood and bone.
That's what they said in the movie, right? And so here's this thing, and you can see through it, and they found all kind of uses for it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I love the movie, it's a wacky movie. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sight gags and silly stuff, and I'm sure that wore on your stamina, like the crazy stuff. But in the beginning, it's very philosophical. This tribe of people, it's basically families, and these families, they don't migrate. So they might not meet each other for a year or two to meet another family of like people. And they all have everything. There's nothing there that one person has that another person doesn't have. If you want the amount of water that they can find, they all can find that. If there are these tubers that they dig up out of the ground, they go out during the day and they dig them up. Every once in a while, an animal comes and they had tranquilizer darts. They're small people, small frame, starving people, really. And they had this tranquilizing herb where they would shoot like an antelope or some kind of springbok or something.
Yeah.
And then they would wait for it to go to sleep, and then they would butcher it and they would all eat it. And they shared everything because there wasn't too many of them, and there was no reason not to. I mean, they couldn't keep anything.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, we'll eat it till we're all done eating, and then a couple more days, maybe we'll find another one. And so they were basically, they didn't have a word for crime. They didn't have a word for guilty. It was impossible to do a crime. They never hurt each other. They didn't attack each other. There was no violence. They didn't understand that even. So they basically were really happy. They had nothing and they were happy, sort of like a Democrat, right? So they just had this subsistence living. Everything was cool. They didn't have a big life expectancy or anything. And they were just going on this way. And because this bottle appeared, now there was something that only one person could have.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I want to have it. Well, now I want to have it. Well, then, so avarice and greed and lust and all these things there was competition all of a sudden, where before there was no competition.
Right.
Everybody, if you wanted to run, everybody could run. They could just run. There was nothing to run to. There was no money. There was no trade. And they went from being a happy people to an unhappy people. And this one guy said, look, we were all happy till this came, and now we're all not happy. We got to get rid of it. And they tried to get rid of it, but it had a little bit of blood on it, and even though they buried it in the ground, the hyena dug it up. So it returned.
Yeah.
a little child brought it back, was like, my God, we have to take this to the end of the earth and throw it off.
Yeah.
And they said, well, the end of the earth has got to be like a 20-day walk. And the guy said, give me the bottle.
Yep.
I will get rid of this thing. I'm surprised they let him. Like, where are you going with the bottle, right? Like, it's like they sort of all agreed to that. So off he went. Now, he did not know civilization was out there. They had never met civilization. The closest thing that came was every once in a while they saw a really loud giant bird way, way high, higher than any other bird to go by. They assumed that was the gods or something like that, right? So that's the beginning of the movie. They established just the Garden of Eden, the serpent has come, right? This thing, it wasn't knowledge, it was just this thing, it was the apple, right? And so this guy's going to get rid of it, and off he goes. And now is when he runs into all the rest of the characters. And I got to tell you, if you like Crocodile Dundee, their guy and their girl are better looking than those two. Like I thought that girl was absolutely beautiful. The school teacher, absolutely beautiful. The scientist who was working on his doctoral thesis, who was all thumbs, couldn't speak to women, was intimidated by women. The most beautiful woman on earth is now there, and he's got to talk to her, and he can't. She's come to teach the children, in the village. Not the bush people village,
right?
Just other people that didn't live in the desert but lived near the Kalahari. And so she was there. Now, in the meantime, because there's 58 countries in Africa and 55 of them are currently at war, so they had the junta. And some guy, the generale wanted to, kill the, and they machine gunned the room full of people, and they ran, but they didn't kill the president, and now they're on the run. So all that stuff is going on. So between the teacher being there, when he sees the beautiful woman, he says, the narrator says, he saw the ugliest human being he'd ever saw.
Right.
She had pale skin like a dead body, and there was something wrong with her hair, and there was, and she wore this. She had some kind of thin skins of some kind of animal hanging all over her. It was really weird. Meanwhile, he's like watching her bathe. Like there's no sexual component. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
The ugliest woman ever, right?
And he thinks that her and the other guy, like, they're the gods, right? So he's trying to give them the
he's
the
like,
bottle.
he's trying to give them back the bottle. Like, we got it, we don't want it. And they're like, we don't want it.
Yeah.
We and he can't he's like, how rude.
Yeah.
They won't take the back. Like,
right.
He had like many times he felt he was rude.
Yeah.
When he was arrested, he totally didn't understand it. When he went into court, he said hello to all the people. He was like real happy to meet everybody.
Yeah.
He wanted to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to be friends with him. It's like a weird naked man.
Yeah, it's like there was plenty of lamb to share or goat to share with everybody, but he wanted to take it for himself.
Yeah, he went in a flock of goats.
Wanted to take it.
And he killed one. When the shepherd came over, he went like, oh, you're just in time. We're just about to eat.
Right.
Next thing, he's under arrest. He doesn't understand why. And just imagine when they first wanted to put him in the Jeep, the one guy said, oh, you can't put him inside, right? Because there was the guy who was like the developed African. He was an educated African.
Yeah.
He spoke several languages. And he goes, well, let's get the Bushman and take him. It's like, well, he's not going inside the Jeep. Like he wanted to sit on the hood and ride.
Yeah.
He was like comfortable up there, sitting in the spare tire,
Yeah.
And the scene where the Jeep went in the river and the winch pulled it out and everything, that was just funny.
Yeah.
That was a funny, dopey thing. And there was lots of funny, dopey things. But as they go along, the guy with the doctoral thesis, when the Bushman was given a 3-month jail sentence, he said, well, he's going to die in jail. He can't understand confinement.
Yeah, it's like he comes from a place where there's no walls, just like that.
Right.
And that was, I don't know, a little profound to me. I'm like, yeah, wow. Like even the idea of
Right.
walls is this whole new thing. There's that great shot when he's inside and he's just staring out the window with the bars and the sky.
Right, like
It's
all he wants to be is out.
Yeah.
Like
and
there's out there. It's still out there.
Yeah.
Out is still there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
well, that's the thing. That's one of the reasons that I love the movie, because there are these profound things.
Yeah.
You know, that whole beginning with the Garden of Eden stuff, where they're like, this is evil. This Coke bottle is evil. This is a bad thing. We got to get this out of our life so we can go back to our happy life. And then when they arrest him and everything, and so the professor says, well, I'll bring him out as an employee because I can like sort of parole him if I have a job for him. So he says, leave him in my custody and he'll be my tracker, because this guy could track everything. I love it when he was sleeping and a Jeep went by and he went and looked at the tracks and it was like, he goes, it's as if two giant snakes went by. Like
right.
it left a weird footprint. Finally, the school teacher in her class is captured by the junta. And they want to use the kids as a shield so they can get away. If you come near us, we'll kill all the kids. And because he's a Bushman, he's able to just slip into the group because he just looks like everybody else, sort of. Whereas the white people can't. They instantly would be recognized. So they give him the sleep darts, and little by little, he makes a tiny bow and arrow, and he puts a string so that he could pull the dart back. So they had like a bee sting or something. Like, what was that? But next thing you know, they're all falling asleep. And when they all fall asleep, the kids get the gun and they rescue everybody. And there's a happy ending. And my favorite part of the ending was for something that he did, I wasn't quite clear on it. They give him a certain amount of money. He says, well, I have to give him the money. He goes, the Bushmen don't need money. They don't even understand it. They have no use for it.
Yeah.
And they give it to him, and he just accepts things like, okay. And then you see when he's like a quarter mile away, he just drops it on the ground. Like, you just see it like blowing away. And finally, he's at a real high altitude somewhere, and there's a cloud cover under the lower altitude world, and this is the end of the land. And he looks out.
Yep.
Throws the bottle, just turns around, starts walking home. Starts walking home. So I really love the movie. A lot of people do. There's a lot of philosophical points. There's a happy ending for the white people as well. As for the Bushman and his family, they're happy to see him come home. He makes it. Imagine the story he tells.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't believe what's out there. Like, you think the bottle was bad?
Right.
You don't even know what a room is like.
Yeah.
They have they have stuff that's supernatural.
Yeah.
And I think it's even though it's highly rated, even highly rated, it's underrated. I love it that somebody made this. I absolutely hate it that there's 4 spinoffs of this.
Right.
They made movies where they exploited the idea.
Yeah, right.
And that's why when you said it was an hour and 45 minutes, when I saw it, I said, oh, this is just an hour and a half. Rudy can handle this. And I started watching the hour and a half. I said, what? This isn't the movie. And it was something in Hong Kong where they accidentally sent it to Hong Kong.
That's the one that I almost I was like, there's no way. That's when I messaged you. I was like, there's no way this is it.
No. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. And I give this movie a 10. I think it's a must-see. Watch it when you have time, when you have 2 hours that you don't need. You can't hustle through this. It's not but it's very funny. It reminded me a lot of Crocodile Dundee, where it's a guy that's out of his element. And in some ways, the Bushman was superior. And in other ways, it was incomprehensible. So I think it's a great sociological study. I think it's a study of relationships. It's just interesting. How do you want to live your life? What's the definition of happy? Is it better to have 25 years like that than to have 80 years of constant demands put on you and, horrible, competition and people trashing you? And, it's just something to think about. I wouldn't trade my life for it, obviously. But maybe if I'd started that way, I wouldn't trade that for this.
Yeah.
So, The Gods Must Be Crazy, fantastic movie. I'm just to tip you over, I'm going to give it a 10. And how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2. This gets a 2 from me, but I will say, there are elements of it that are interesting. The idea that it starts off as a documentary And clearly it's going for a sense of humor, and there's some social commentary in here, right? And you get the juxtaposition between the tribe and the busy city and all that. And even the narrator is talking about like, yeah, at some point people came up with working and money and this and that. So now, and they had to come up with time and
different environments.
Yeah. And so but because the mankind did this, now they had to invent school. So everyone was forced to go to school every day.
So they were forced to go into the rat race.
And it's like, so everyone goes and they pretend to look like they're working. And then every day the clock hits 1:00:00. And then they stop pretending for 15 minutes and then they pretend again.
Right.
So like that was kind of interesting. And then it suddenly becomes the narrative, and it just got pretty weird. And I think some of the
great.
It's interesting. I will say I'm glad it exists. I can see why there's people that are really into it. It just wasn't for me. I wonder if maybe if I saw this 10, 15 years ago, I would feel differently.
Before you were this far into the rat race?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But all that, some of the jokes I felt like, were kind of funny, but then overstayed their welcome. Like the whole thing with the Jeep, kind of funny, rolling up and down the hill. He's trying to put the rock in there.
And the Jeep will come back.
Yeah, and then it just keeps going on, though. Like him being clumsy was funny at moments, but then it goes on too long. The Jeep getting pulled up into the tree with the winch, kind of funny. Goes on a little bit long, though.
That is true. Yeah, the thing with the rock under the wheel, they must have done that like 8 to 10 times.
Yeah, it became a lot.
And then him with the girl, where he's knocking over the tables and everything, like that wouldn't really happen. So that was over the top.
Yeah. Man, I feel like there was one more thing I had with it. I will say another positive before I wrap it is I do appreciate so much the stunt work in this movie. There is a lot of great stunt work. There's a part where they climb up a tree and there's a lion that runs over and is grabbing the tree.
Yeah, the tree bends down.
Yeah, and it's a real lion and a real guy and a camera and just stuff like that. And even him jumping into the Jeep as it's rolling and jumping out and putting the rock there. Like, it's a real vehicle, and sure, it might be a hollowed out prop vehicle, but you're still going to get hurt if it happens to run you over if you slip or do something. And there's just a lot of it, like jumping in and out of the vehicles and
when it was going backwards and the guy was driving it sitting on the hood.
Yeah,
it was in reverse.
Yeah, that moment, like just all kinds of crazy.
I thought it was hilarious that they just took the door off every time,
right?
Like instead of opening the door.
Yeah, so that's something that I thought was really fascinating, and just the fact that it's covered very much entirely like a documentary film. As you know, Jamie, the director, was a documentary filmmaker for a long time. So yeah, it's a neat film. As much as I didn't like it, it's probably good to check out. I mean, you're already recommending it, so we'll leave there. But it's just not for me.
I think it's just a must see for your catalog. Mm-hmm. Like if you haven't seen this, you don't know. Mm-hmm. You're part of the population that doesn't know.
Yeah. We'll watch Cannibal Holocaust next time. Just kidding. Okay. I won't put you through that. That's one that might have the powers that be rain down on us. All right. Well, that's a wrap on this one, everybody. Leave a comment if you got any more suggestions and let us know. Have you seen this movie? Is this a movie do you like? Do you hate it? What's your take on it? We're curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
Always.
So that's the end of this one, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks again. See you next time.